All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Long. For those of you all who do not know me, I am the director of NetWorked, and we are very pleased to have you all joining us for our pitch parade. So we know with NetWorked that we work in many different industries. We've talked about healthy food, we've talked about housing and real estate, we've talked a group of us have talked about childcare, and most recently, we delved into the world of entrepreneurship. So anyone who is familiar or hangs around entrepreneurs know we get excited about these things called pitches. So what we're doing today, we thought we'd bring the idea of a pitch parade to NetWorked. And so today's conversation is going to be around 3 presentations, short, high energy, interactive, about what's happening to support entrepreneurs in this space. Now, do not expect a 30-minute dissertation from our presenters. They are here to give us a quick, uplifting injection of some really good work that is happening in their particular organizations, again, that we can be aware of and that we can bring back into our organizations, or at least connect with them to have a point of reference, to have a point of connection, to, again, bring more resources and impact into our work with entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. So we have several economic developers who are on the call today. We've got some nonprofit folks. And again, it's all about becoming more aware of resources to help us in our work. I am going to share my screen for our convening. And just to acclimate everyone as well. Can you see the current slide? NetWorked? Thumbs up. Very good. Okay, so again, just to make sure everyone is aware for our foundational setting, the mission of NetWorked is connecting unconnected networks and closing gaps between people, information, and assets to develop pathways that boldly solve community challenges. Today for our pitch parade, we are so pleased to have Raynes. Ryan is the Business Development and Program Manager with the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. So we're going to hear from Ryan. We're also going to hear from Vincent Hayworth. Vincent, go ahead and give a wave, please. He's with the Capital Access Center with the Kansas Small Business Development Center. And rounding us out today with our presenters is Dr. Donetta Watson. She is with the Kansas City, Kansas Entrepreneurial Training and Resource Center. If you hear something you like, again, give reactions, give a smile, give a thumbs up. If you're able to come off of just your name and come on camera so that we can get a little more interactive, that would be fantastic. If you are not in a position to do so, we understand that as well. The overall point though, if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have a reaction, please use your chat and let's continue to make the most of these encounters so that, again, we walk away not only having a good time with NetWorked, but also being more informed. So with that being said, I'm going to kick it to our very first presenter, and this is Ryan Raynes, again, of the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to NetWorked, Ryan.
Thanks. Glad to be with everybody today. Let me grab my screen here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening in entrepreneurship in Douglas County. So just a second. So I came on with the chamber and are you able to see the PowerPoint slides and everything, Christina? Okay. I came on with the chamber and the Economic Development Corporation for Lawrence and Douglas County back in March of 2020. And recognized that we had a e-community in place, which is part of NetWorked Kansas. And through the e-community, we're able to provide gap funding. Ours is the Lawrence Metro. That's the one that we manage. And then Jill Jollicourt from the county manages the Douglas County gap funding program, e-community. And so we started having conversations around entrepreneurship and what are sort of the realities of our county. And we identified that there are 120,000 people in our county. Of verified businesses, there's 5,911. Those are businesses that have been verified within the last 12 months. That's not a perfect count. I was just in Eudora meeting with the city manager last week, and they confirmed that that's not a perfect count. But that's the best information that we've been able to find. All those businesses have been verified in the last 12 months. Of that, and our female population, which this is the way that Shumera and the federal government, tracks this information. So they classify it as female or male. female population is 60,621, so 50% of our community. And we identified that woman-owned businesses in Douglas County were at 5.2%. So big underrepresentation there. When we jumped down into our diverse population, identifying that about 21,000 people in our community are from that population, and they only make up 1.9% of our business ownership. So huge underrepresentation there as well. When you take these two together, and I see Rhonda on here, the businesses that we've been able to get certified through our county, the last I saw was around 9. So huge opportunity there to help some of these businesses get certified through the state that haven't been certified yet. So we identified the numbers for where we are, and then trying to figure out where do we go next. There was a study that was done by the Brookings Institute in spring of 2020. It was through a Hamilton project, so it's a little bit old because it was done in 2015. But it was called it's called Minority and Women Entrepreneurs: Building Capital, Business Networks, and Skills. And there's a quote in there that says that increasing the rate of minority and female entrepreneurship can help to reduce the race and gender wealth gaps, to reduce the gap in, reduce income and wealth inequality and increase social mobility. So Jill and I started having conversations about how do we, Jill, of course, from Douglas County, how do we work together to try to change some of the future statistics for our community. And the Brookings Institute pointed out 3 things. The article, it said that access to capital was a big barrier for entrepreneurs, which isn't a surprise. Access to business networks, and then access to skill development. And so what we recognize, right, is through Network Kansas, which has been a phenomenal partner ever since I came on back in March of 2020. I've been impressed with how Network Kansas is so interested in trying to find a way to support the businesses that are in our county and our community. But they provide gap funding right now. That's the program that we have. And so in order for the entrepreneurs, of course, to access the gap funding, they need to go through a public funding source. Traditionally, that's a credit union or a bank. And so what we identified through the study, right, is that different portions of our population are not accessing capital at the same rate. Particularly women, and particularly those in our diverse population, aren't accessing capital at the same rate as white males. And when they do access it, they get less money at a higher interest rate. And so there's various reasons for that. But we recognize that was a barrier. And so part of trying to step up to address that access to capital is a revolving loan fund that we're working on. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But then also business networks. So recognizing the host of programs that are available. If they are able to access the capital, do they know about the gap funding resources that are available? Do they know about the certifications that are available through the state? If they do know about them, how could we encourage and promote them? And other things like that that are available through business networking. And then obviously skill development. And we meet a lot of businesses here in Douglas County that aren't always aware of what phenomenal resource the Small Business Development Center, the KU Small Business Development Center here, that has helped countless businesses get to their next step. But we meet a lot of businesses that still aren't aware that those resources are here. And so one of the ways that we're trying to address that is by looking for partnerships where we can align wins. And so that's as simple as it sounds, right? Just trying to find other organizations, other leaders in the community, servants in the community that have a same interest as we do in some way. We don't have to agree with them 150%, but if they're interested in, for example, entrepreneurship, then we are too. So how do we work together? And so the Youth Entrepreneurial Challenge, for example, that Network Kansas provides is a great resource for anyone in the community to engage in entrepreneurship. We recognize that we had a few access points. And so if we're going to encourage and promote entrepreneurship in a way that diversifies our current entrepreneurial portfolio, I guess, if you say, then we need to create more access points and engage more students. And so we reached out to the Boys and Girls Club, who were just a recipient of like one of 20 communities in the country. They were a recipient of a workforce grant. And so they were eager to create an entrepreneurship curriculum. So we've been working with them. We're hoping to get that done in the near future. And we're hoping that that will be a potential access point and a feeder into the Youth Entrepreneurial Challenge. And so continuing to create those access points as much as we can to help more students get involved and get engaged and even conceive of the idea of being an entrepreneur. Revolving loan funds. So our capital campaign, our EDC for Lawrence and Douglas County and the Lawrence Chamber is wrapping up a capital campaign for the next 5 years. And we've made a commitment in that to create a $500,000 revolving loan fund over the next 5 years. We're hopeful that we'll get that built a lot sooner. But are there other partners out there in the community that are also interested in creating resources for women and those in our diverse population to become entrepreneurs? And do they have interest in a revolving loan fund? I know Network Kansas has an Empower Fund, and Christina's, I feel like, managing like 35 of these different RLFs in Wichita. And so we've talked some about that. But finding those wins, who could come in and support that and help us get that built. And then gap financing, of course, that's another partnership that's been phenomenal, trying to get resources in folks' hands. The woman-owned business and minority-owned business certifications to the state are an awesome resource, but last I checked, we only had 9 that were registered. So how do we help more businesses work through that process? Do they need cohorts? They need to do it at a coffee shop? Do we need to create a space for that? What does that look like? City of Lawrence plans. So our city has some economic development plans. One is economic development strategic plan that Steve Kelly and I just worked on as project managers with Ernst & Young. There's some entrepreneurial components to that. There's also a downtown master plan for the city of Lawrence, and it recommends there being a minority business incubator in downtown Lawrence. And so is there some way to align that with some of the other things that we're trying to build out here? The Douglas County Community Health Plan in Poverty that Jill from the county, who manages the Douglas County e-community, runs. She's oversees this community health plan. There's a portion of this that's designated to jobs, and around jobs, there are commitments that the chamber and the EDC has made to raise the percentage of businesses in our community that are owned by our diverse population. And so again, looking for those places of partnership and trying to align with those and figure out how can we move the ball forward in creative ways is really, I think, the only way that we're going to have any success doing it, because we absolutely can't do it alone. And there's a lot of great partners, but we can get scattered in a lot of different directions if we're not careful. And so just as a reference to the sources, because these have been super helpful for us, Data Axle, which has been available to us through the Johnson County Library. I drove over into Johnson County recently, and they let me sign up for a library membership and can access Data Axle that way. It's been the best source of data that we've been able to find in terms of identifying sort of what our present reality is, so to better understand how we're doing in the future and have sort of a picture of the moment. And it provides, as I said, businesses that have been checked in on or verified in the last 12 months. Then there's the Brookings Institute study that I've shared that a number of people here in the community have asked me to email over to them because they've seen it and they're interested in it when I refer to it. And then obviously Network Kansas website, I'm sure everybody's got, but those have been huge resources for us. And I feel like we've got a long way to go, to be honest. But it's exciting to see some of the progress and some of the momentum, I think, around a few of these initiatives. So
that is fantastic. The comprehensiveness and the ways that this work is showing up in city plans, in a capital campaign. I mean, that's first rate right there. I'd love to be able to get some reactions, also get some questions for Ryan. The virtual floor is open. Ryan, we'll have you go ahead and stop your share if that's okay. Screen share, perfect.
Well, Christina, this is Don. I've got a question. Obviously, there is ongoing structural issues in terms of the point you made about the amount of capital and the cost of capital. In some of the data sources, is there deeper understanding as to why that differential continues in today's market and environment?
Yeah, I appreciate your question, Don. I think that if I'm honest, it's probably over my head at this point. I've spent more time just understanding the percentages, so trying to identify the reality here, and then to say, I understand on some level that if I think there's a whole host of different reasons why persons aren't able to access the public capital, and so I haven't done any policy work on that necessarily. I've just been focused on how do we try to bring in some of those initial resources that could help get the ball rolling in that way.
Yeah.
Very good. And there are a number of folks who may have some insight as well on this call about the barrier, if anyone would like to chime in real quickly. Why do we see the barrier? You all are quiet today. Well, with a broad brush, we'll paint the story, and that is historic and systemic challenges absolutely still persist, and they do impact the credit worthiness or the perception of credit worthiness of minorities and women. When we look at borrowing rates, when we look at income levels and discretionary income and things of that nature, if we're looking at the makeup of businesses, typically in the state of Kansas, if you're a minority-owned business, then you are not hiring at the same rates as your colleagues. When you do have sales, your revenue is not performing at the same as your colleagues. And so you could be perceived as somewhat more riskier of a borrower when you're going to traditional financial institutions for funding and credit decisions. Now, again, that is not everyone's experience, but it's by and large what we are working to address when we're looking at how do we broaden the idea of who is credit worthy? How do we broaden the capability and criteria when funding institutions or lending institutions are making funding decisions? And that's what is underscoring a number of the microloan and micro lending programs that you're seeing now. They're looking at dropping that credit score, lower than what the traditional financial threshold would be. They're looking at, instead of collateral, what else can we look at? Character references and things of that nature, even the portfolio performance of the business itself. And so just looking at a broadening so that that historic and systemic impact that continues to persist does not continue to go forward, because there's different solutions to helping make sure that more people are on the path to being bankable.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that, Christina. I think I can say this is we're thinking about how do we build out this RLF. One of the things that we're considering, right, is that if this is exclusive to only people that would be able to access the capital through a bank or credit union, then it's not really for them. So we need to create this in a way that removes the obstacle that's keeping people, the barrier for keeping people accessing that. And I grew up in Appalachia in southeastern Kentucky and was very familiar with side hustles and businesses. They didn't call them that. That's just what they did, that weren't on the books anywhere. And those folks knew how to pay their bills. They knew how to make the business work. But they didn't necessarily qualify for a loan, and they wouldn't have qualified for a loan. And so I recognize that there are lots of people in our community that are absolutely competent and know how to run a business and function it and how to achieve success. But on paper, they may not qualify for a loan through traditional sources. And so we're hoping that the RLF provides an access point for them that have good ideas and just need help getting the capital to get it going.
Very good question, Don. Great response. And then we did have one more question from actually our next presenter as well. And Vincent was asking in the chat, he asked about what is the average dollar loan amount that will be available when the loan fund is operational?
That's a good question, Vincent. We're exploring that. I think part of what we're trying to figure out is how do we build this in a way that hopefully it's got longevity. And if 100% of the loans aren't repaid, it doesn't necessarily crash the ship. But also I think NetWorked Kansas has been phenomenal. Again, I keep talking about them because one of the things that they worked with us to do is to be able to make the RLF loans in a way that we could still access our e-community loans as a partner of that. So sort of spreading the risk, and also, up to 60% of a loan and up to $45,000. So that's a sizable chunk of change if we were to make somewhere between $15,000 to $25,000 loans, and then a person could apply for an e-community. that's a lot more than what's available right now.
Very good. Great questions, answers. Thank you so much, Ryan, for giving us again a quick insight into what Douglas County and Lawrence is doing as it relates to creating a more inclusive entrepreneurship ecosystem with some capital attached to that. So then that is a perfect transition into, since we're talking about capital access, to Vincent Hayworth. He is with the Kansas Small Business Development Center, and he is going to share about their Capital Access Center. Vincent, the virtual floor is yours.
Well, thank you. First of all, thanks everybody for being on today. And yeah, we have some great resources on this call. I'm looking through all the titles and everything. And thank you, Christina, for having me on. And Ryan, that's some terrific things that you're doing in Lawrence. And that's great to hear. So again, thank you everyone for being on today. My name is Vince Hayworth. I'm the director of our Capital Access Center, and I am a extension of our Kansas Small Business Centers throughout Kansas. And we were started out of the CARES Act about 1.5 years ago, and our main objective is to get capital for our clients, the Kansas Small Business Centers. And we'll just go ahead and go on and kind of tell you about what we do. We offer loan-specific consulting services to small business owners. And we just announced we are bringing on another banker, former banker. And so we actually have about 45 years of banking experience behind us at the Capital Access Center. But some of the services that we provide is loan eligibility screening for one. So what we do is we take a client with a loan request, and we help that client with their eligibility for financing partners. And a lot of times this is something that the bankers will do. What we're trying to do is make life easier for everybody. So this is one of our preemptive things that we do at the Capital Access Center. We work with them on the structure of the loan request. So a lot of times the client may come in and they know they need money, but they're not really sure exactly how they need to structure their loan. So if you think about seasonality type businesses, like you may have a snow removal company, or you may have a landscaping company, and they know they need $50,000, but they're not really sure how they need to structure that. So what we do is we work with them with our clients to make sure we're getting the best available funding for them. In this kind of a situation, instead of taking out a permanent loan, a line of credit was probably going to be their best solution. So they're not paying interest on money that they're not using year round. So we are always looking at that structure portion of it. Underwriting. One of the things that we do is we actually take a client, we actually put them through actual bank underwriting standards. So the whole idea of this is to take a client, put them through the banking underwriting, so before they actually get to the bank. So we know what the strengths and weaknesses are of this particular client. And what we do on top of that is we look for mitigants for any kind of weaknesses that may be perceived within this credit request. So when we go to a financing partner, we already know what the strengths and weaknesses are, and we have mitigants upfront before we approach our capital partners. This gives us a much greater success rate than previously done. Probably the biggest thing that we do is the capital partner assistance, is where we work with all kinds of funding options locally, regionally, and nationally to find the best fit for our clients. We always have a local look first. I want to stress this. If we can engage our local partners first, we always do this, but sometimes there is challenges for financing partners, especially in different industries. So if our local banks or partners cannot look at a request or a business that works for them locally, we'll look at a regional bank or other funding options. And then if that does not work, we go nationally. We have over 300 funding partners from local to national. And a variety of that is we have large banks, we have small banks, we have SBA banks, so we have conventional banks. So no matter what kind of assistance they need, we should be able to find a partner that fits that. We're kind of like loan brokers, but we're nonprofit in that sense. And then we provide them underwriting guidance. So one of the things that business owners often run into is once they do have a request with the bank or a financing, they don't really know how to talk to that financing partner. So they're really good at making widgets, but maybe understanding the balance sheet and some of the questions and the profit and loss statements that come from the underwriters might be a little bit of a challenge for them. So as the CAC, what we do is we actually help guide them through that process of what the questions are going to be and help provide that guidance through it. It's a little scary sometimes for business owners to actually approach a bank and then have those conversations with them. So we're there to help provide that guidance with them. One of the fun things that we do is we do a lot of financial training. So we work with our referral partners, centers of influence, and our actual existing advisors. We actually do bank training. I just had one the other day where we're teaching our advisors all about the banking industry. So they're more well equipped to talk to the bankers, know what they're looking for. And we're also providing financial literacy training all throughout the state, even basic training such as managing your credit scores and your personal debt service requirements. Those can really affect your ability to get an approval for a loan. So what we're doing is we're actually presenting those trainings on that level throughout the state of Kansas. And then one of the great things I do is probably most of you would find this pretty boring, but I talk to financing partners on a full-time basis. Our advisors do a terrific job throughout the state. But the reality is they don't have time to talk to all the resource partners that are available on a local, regional, or national basis. So one of the things that we do at the Capital Access Center is we're actually on the phone, we're emailing, we're talking to these institutions on a daily basis to find out what kind of loans they're looking for, what's going to fit their box, what kind of loans that they're not liking right now, which ones are going to be a challenge. And so when we get our client, one of the things that we do is we try to play matchmaker at this point. We really are looking at trying to save everybody time. If a certain bank is never going to do a restaurant loan, then we're not going to take one of our clients to that particular bank. For the reality is their chances are probably not very good. So what we're trying to do is match them up with the best financing option for them. So that is everything. Since we started a year and a half ago, we've helped fund over 20 clients statewide, and for a little bit over $11 million in funding. So during that time, you can probably see that we've had a lot of variances. Within that time, we've done loans for $30,000. We did one for $2.1 million. We've got a wide spectrum of clients that we work with. Again, we work throughout the state of Kansas. This is a free service that we provide to all the clients of the Kansas Small Business Center. And one of the things that we're really proud of is we're only one of 3 dedicated capital centers nationwide. So we have this resource right here in Kansas. It's a really neat concept that we're doing. It's been proven to be very successful. Obviously, we're adding on another person here to help cover the state of Kansas. This particular person will be primarily in charge of the western side of Kansas, but obviously there's some demographics there that, you know, the geography there is hard to cover for one person. So we're pretty excited about the future, and we have some fantastic partners that are on the line right now with us. So at this point, I'll just open it up for any kind of questions that you may have.
That's fantastic. We have one in the chat from Jeff Usher. What are the demographics of the clients that the Capital Access Center?
It is all over the place. It's hard to, I actually did look at, we keep what we call a pipeline report. And one of the interesting things I went into 68% of our clients are either minority owned or women owned businesses. So I think that was probably one of the things that really stood out to us is most people would think that it may hit a certain demographic, but we have a very wide range of clients that we're working with. And that's actually been really exciting.
That's fantastic. We had another question come through the chat. Do you have LLC investors in any of your financing packages? That's from Don Mackey.
Could you repeat that again?
Yep, no worries. It's the question is, do you have LLC investors in any of your financing packages? So any investors?
Okay, so I think there may be a little bit of confusion on that. We don't actually finance the clients ourselves. So we're just looking for resource partners to play matchmaker. I don't know if that was directly the question there. Sometimes we do get that question, do we actually have a loan fund ourselves? But we don't. So I think that may be where that question was coming from. And forgive me if I wasn't.
No worries. Don, you want to go ahead and give more context?
Yeah, no, I realize you don't do the lending, Vincent. Love what you're doing, by the way.
Thank you.
But as you're looking at your various financing resources, whether that's a bank or the entrepreneur themselves or whoever, is one of the resource groups potential community level LLC investors who maybe come in and buy the building, lease it to the entrepreneur until the entrepreneur can buy that building back, that kind of play?
Okay, I got what you're saying now. Okay, sorry. Thank you for the explanation. We really haven't seen that. Now, we have worked with some investment groups and private equity groups. We're really concerned about getting, we don't care where our client gets the funding from as long as it makes sense for them. Okay. So we are looking at all options for them. We haven't had that particular scenario come in very often. I just haven't seen it yet. Doesn't mean it can happen, but we are looking at all kinds of sources. Of course, we've got terrific partners on here with NetWorked Kansas and some of our other, we actually are involved with several loan requests right now with those partners. But we haven't had that particular thing came up yet. On the real estate front, we've actually been able to get everyone financed. So we haven't had traditional bank financing. So we haven't come into that scenario yet. Great question.
Mm-hmm. Who else has a question or reaction? How many of you all, by a show of hands or thumbs up, are doing lending and could definitely use this capital access resource as another resource extension to those who you serve? I know we can. Yeah.
Well, I put another question in the chat, but I'm curious about those clients who were successful in obtaining capital. What were their demographics?
Wow, that's, I will say it's all over the board. We've had, I would say predominantly the ones that we've seen the most are women-owned businesses. We've been very successful with that demographic. We haven't really run into any kind of issues as far as any kind of demographics not being able to get financed because of what they are. So we have not seen that whatsoever. I think it's really, I think one of the major things that we do is with us keeping our ears to the ground, we know who's doing what. And instead of someone walking off the street trying to find a bank that's a good fit for their business, we're doing that legwork for them. The bankers love us because they're getting a pre-vetted deal. And so in theory, they do not have to do anything. It's really a matter of finding out if we're a good fit for a business standpoint. After they have an initial conversation, they get it into their underwriting and they're good to go. We've had very few not make it.
I mean, I just want to I'm really curious about this question, and
Mhm.
you're having a hard time answering it because I think it should be pretty easy to do unless you're not collecting that data.
We are, but I don't have it right here in front of
Okay,
me.
I just wanted to make sure we're not continuing to just support white entrepreneurs in Kansas to
We
access
take,
capital.
I
I
can
know,
guarantee you, we take any client, we don't care. And we don't care what the demographic is,
but
and we do
but
not
but in
focus
the
on.
but in the end, who gets the capital? That's just the question. I think we deliberately, I think many of our initiatives as well have looked very hard at ourselves and looking at how we have dispersed our investments. And frankly, we haven't done a good job. And so that's the purpose of the question. It's not to attack you in any way. It's just to raise that awareness that it's something I think it's critical that we as white led organizations need to be very aware that we need to directly, I mean, impact those data in some way and look at our own practices and the practices of those who we're serving. And so actually you're serving the financial institutions out there who have over the years perpetually not invested in BIPOC led entrepreneurs. And so how do we break down that system? So I'm sorry if that's I'm just really curious about that.
Again, this was a short power pitch presentation. I don't have that data in front of you for that particular question. I will tell you, we do not support the financial institutions directly. They actually see us as a resource. And again, part of our training programs is we actually have taken initiative. We're doing a bilingual training in Dodge City on financial literacy. Our bankers are involved with several groups as far as financial literacy throughout the state of Kansas to teach that. And we could care less about the demographics as long as we're helping everybody.
Mhm.
And our pipeline shows that we have a very varied group of people that are involved with the Capital Access Center. And there's no barrier to entry for us. It's all free services. All they have to do is sign up to be a client. We're more than willing to help them.
I want to thank you, Jeff, for the question, and Vincent for taking that on, definitely. Part of us being able to be networked and be in conversation with one another is really looking, again, if we're talking about boldly solving community challenges, and being able to be comfortable enough to ask questions and then be comfortable enough to share with them. But with myself even being connected or formally an advisor with the Kansas Small Business Development Center, when we're talking about that grass level, that on the streets, of course, more can continue to be done, but that's the organization that does see so many entrepreneurs that traditional ecosystems may miss. They sit, they work, they consult, and then they do go on behalf of those entrepreneurs to financial institutions. And what we're seeing in Wichita with certain financial institutions is that they're starting to get it. Bank presidents and more are starting to look at, okay, let's be serious. Let's take an audit of what our funding is actually doing. Let's see who is in leadership. Let's see what our professional development pipeline is. Do we serve who we say we serve? And are we reflective in that? There's much more to do, but there are more and more institutions that if they're about this work, they're starting to truly be about this work. So I'm appreciative of this additional resource, being a nonprofit that works with entrepreneurs who are considered other too often, that we have, again, the expertise and the resource to help extend our value and our capacity to help more entrepreneurs get on the path of being bankable. But it's going to take these challenging conversations to get there. So thank you all. And so with that being said, we're going to move to our third and final presenter for our pitch. Hooray, when we are talking about access and opportunity in the Kansas City, Kansas area, there was no physical place, I'll say one physical place that was dedicated, that was seen as a beacon where entrepreneurs of color could go and be served. And I know this because I worked in Kansas City for a number of years, and that's how I met folks like Vincent. We created the KCK Entrepreneurship Work Group, and we looked at what were the gaps, because yes, while there are a lot of service providers on the Missouri side of the line, what was happening on the Kansas side of the line? And so we are so pleased to be able to have Dr. Donetta Watson when we're talking about putting people on paths to be bankable, helping to create, again, a citywide and a countywide response to more inclusion and entrepreneurship. You have to be able to have places where people can be served where they live, work, play, and pray. And so I'm very pleased to present Dr. Donetta Watson. She is not only a point person with the KCK Urban E-Community, she's with a group called the Black Mastermind Group, and she has exciting news about a physical location on the Kansas side of the state line to serve entrepreneurs of color. Dr. Watson, welcome to NetWorked.
Thank you, Christina. Oh, it's amazing to see all your wonderful faces today. All of us on this journey of impacting entrepreneurs and changing the entrepreneurial ecosystem right here in Kansas, and specifically here in Kansas City, Kansas. Like Christina said, I am the founder of an organization called the Black Mastermind Group. We believe wholeheartedly when we shift our minds and we master our minds, we can accomplish anything. So as a people, this is where we begin in redeveloping the mindset of our community to advance us to the next level in our entrepreneurial journey. So we have launched the Kansas City, Kansas Entrepreneurial Resource and Training Center solely for us to have a place where the community in the urban core can come and receive the necessary training, development, mentorship, coaching, as well as funding initiatives that will help them to create sustainable business models. And so knowing our community as well as I do, the things that we lack, and one of the main reasons is predominantly when we are entrepreneurs, we are employees on Friday and an entrepreneur on Monday. And the gap between the knowledge necessary to develop a sustainable business and as well lead a successful organization is vast. And so we're here to provide not just the technical entrepreneurial financial literacy acumen, but as well the mindset necessary to become a leader of an organization, not a sole proprietorship, but a leader of a business organization that can employ people, that put people in their own community to work, to diminish and reduce unemployment in our community, to help to create viable entities that can employ people, create opportunities for people, that reduce unemployment, that helps to reduce crime and homelessness, hopelessness, all of those issues that stem from lack of opportunity. That's our mission here in the Black Mastermind Group. And we have now created a place in Kansas City, Kansas, where people can come, not just the Black community, but the community at large. Our doors are open to anyone that needs education, training, coaching, mentoring, and development, and as well as financial resources. Through our relationship with NetWorked Kansas, we're excited about being able to offer these services and our partnerships we're creating with KCK, with the Kansas City, Kansas Unified Government, with different banks in our community. We are making as much as we can available with these partnerships and collaborations. And so I apologize for being late. I was just in a meeting with Small Business Development Center, which will be bringing classes to our center to make sure that individuals who would not necessarily have access to certain types of classes because of lack of internet capability, lack of computers in their homes, we are providing the place where they can come and take advantage of classes, use computers, get assistance from coaches and mentors and advisors, and as well access to capital. Accessing capital has been something that I was sitting on the side of the seat of being a lender and realizing our community doesn't even understand the requirements necessary to even start the journey for applying for capital. Now, the first thing they do is go to the bank and miss step 1, 2, and 3, but everyone says, go get a bank loan. But establishing a profile for the business and setting it up to apply for business credit and operating within those parameters having a business model that can qualify for funding. Those are the things that we focus on. If we're going to see more of our community be able to access capital, then we have to teach how to structure a business that can access capital. What are the requirements, the length of time in business, how you must operate financially, having a profit margin that you must maintain in the business, and structuring it to where you can see that profit in the business, which the lender wants to see it in the bank, not to see it come in the business stores and go out before the 30-day period is over, but that profit has been able to be maintained in the bank. And those simple, basic things that our community seems to not know how to structure because it hasn't been taught. We're here teaching it. And so it's an exciting opportunity for our community and the community as a whole in Kansas City, Kansas. If we can create sustainable businesses in the community, that business owner can really impact that core community that it exists within. And that's our mission, that's our objective, and that is our goal.
Thank you for
Any questions?
sharing this. I have a question and get it started real quickly with you. And that is, you're talking to a number of organizations that in some ways has their hand in the work of entrepreneurship. When they're looking at how do they get more inclusive in that work, then there's a question of how. So yes, a center was obviously needed. How did it come about?
Well, saw a need and just filled it. That's basically how it came about. There was a need, and we had the ability to do it, and we did it. And so I'm one of those that if I stepped on your toe, I'll apologize after the fact, but I'm going to keep moving. And so we did. We saw there was a need for something of this nature in this city, and there had not been one central place for entrepreneurs to come. And so we saw ourselves doing what everyone else is doing. Well, if you need this, you'll have to go to Johnson County. If you need that, you have to go to Kansas City, Missouri. If you need that, you'll have to go over to this area. There wasn't just one place that an entrepreneur could come. And somehow we lost that mindset of one central location to where we've dispersed everything that an entrepreneur would need across so many different areas that they spend a lot of time running to different in and out of all of these different resource providers. And honestly, the community is frustrated. I was an entrepreneur myself. I was a management statistician for the federal government. When my job closed, I went into entrepreneurship full time. And I ran all over the city. A lot of times I just didn't know what to do. I'm teaching business school now, and I'm running all over the city trying to find the resources that I need. And I realized that's a huge problem for people in the urban core who may not know how to even integrate into all of these services. So we at least want to have a place to introduce them. If this is what you need, it's here. And as well, open up our doors that if you have what an entrepreneur needs, bring it here, schedule your appointments, meet with them here, serve the community right where the community. I love what you said, play and pray. And I love that. So yes, we wanted to be right where the community exists so we can bring in the resources they need and make sure that access is there for everything that our community would need. That's why we're here.
Very good. What questions are there from the virtual floor?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I really think that this is great. I'm glad that you guys have a physical center because that is something that Christina could probably attest to, as well as that there hasn't been one in that particular area. So having a central place where they can actually know where they can go, I think that's such a big deal there. So I'm thrilled that you guys are going to be opening up this resource, and I will echo all your comments throughout your presentation there. And I'm very happy to hear that you're working with the SBDC as well, because I think there's complementary services that really help out. So
thank you. And that's Vincent. Thank you, Vincent. Feel free to come by. We're at 1121 North 5th Street. Doors are open. We have 10 office spaces here to incubate businesses, and about the traditional incubation process. We provide education, training, coaching, mentoring, so that entrepreneur in this physical location could take advantage of all the training necessary, but we also want to make sure that they have the counsel. That multitude of counsel in business that produces safety is critical. And having entrepreneurs be solopreneurs and in a silo to themselves is where we see a lot of businesses not sustainable. They are just not positioned correctly. And that counsel we want to make sure is available for them as well. So that one-stop resource center is what we're looking for our business owners to have a place, not just to get technical resources, but counsel and guidance as well.
Very good. Don Mackey has an observation he'd like to make.
Yeah, and I would kind of throw this out to all three presenters. And that is, it was sparked by Jeff's question. I think there's an overlay in terms of who we're trying to work with. And that overlay is young adults, those 20 and 30-year-olds who maybe have student debt. They're interested in getting into entrepreneurship or business. They don't have deep pocket families, and maybe they have some of the same challenges that have been addressed during the presentation. But it seems to me it's also a special group that has a number of additional challenges. And if we want to create pathways for young people to get into business, are resources sensitive to the unique challenges and barriers that they have? So anyway, I just throw that out. I know with a lot of the rural communities we work with, one of their intentional ecosystem building strategies is to create pathways for young adults to acquire businesses, to start businesses, to expand businesses. And I've just found some of that learning really fascinating. Realizing that that's the future of our business and venture communities is ultimately those 20 and 30-year-olds.
Thank you for that observation, Don, very much. And it's definitely something to consider as we look at, again, we've got to, if we say we're going to boldly solve community challenges, then who are we trying to solve challenges for? I'm going to open up the floor now for any other questions or comments from our Pitch Parade participants. Yes, Ms. Don.
I'd like to kind of piggyback on what he said, because what we are doing in our organization, we realize the majority of the people that we are really working to move them to the next level are 40, 50, more predominantly 50, 60, and 70-year-olds. And we realize to really impact the community, we have to get our younger entrepreneurs more structured and stable in business, or the work that we really want to see, the fruit from the work that we do, we won't see it for 10 or 20 years, where the real economic move or shift will happen in the urban core. So we know that training, teaching, and developing young entrepreneurs has to be the forefront of what we're doing. If we took an 18-year-old, and I want to take it even further back because our goal is to start with 14-year-olds. If we take a 14-year-old and put him on a 10-year track, that 14-year-old will never see that prison pathway that is predominant in our community, because they'll know who they are and what they're called to do as an entrepreneur and get on that pathway. With the proper guidance and resources, they would be able to create a sustainable business model in 10 years. So we know that if we can catch the younger people before they make those unwise decisions and get them on a pathway toward entrepreneurship, their future could dramatically change and reduce that prison pathway. That is one of the things that we're working on, is establishing the Young Black Mastermind group and really work with that 14 to 18-year-old group and move even beyond 14, but to start with that group and put them on a 10-year pathway, because success in entrepreneurship is not overnight. And to create something that's really going to be sustainable, it takes about 7 to 10 years to really put a sustainable business model in the community. We teach them the competencies and walk them through that process. We can see a change, a dramatic change in what is happening in our young community. So we're on that pathway as well to launch our Young Black Mastermind program in January, and to have it to really to work in parallel with the community and changing the mindsets and moving them further on their journey. So we'd love to collaborate with any of you all who are on that same pathway and want to really put some services before a community that's never had these types of services right in their neighborhood. I'd love to collaborate with you. Our doors are open. Anyone that wants to collaborate and bring resources down here to our location, I'm open for that. And I thank you so much, Christina, for this opportunity.
Absolutely. We appreciate all three of our presenters and each one of you all who has joined us today for our network call. You know, one of our values is valuing one another's time. And so in terms of preparing to transition to our close, I do want to let you know you all will receive an invitation related to November's convening, where we will close our first year of convenings very strongly. But I do want to challenge each of us as we leave this pitch parade. We all came to this call from different organizations wearing different hats. My question and my challenge to you is, so what? We have heard a number of really good resources in a very short amount of time. And we can take this all the way back to March. Each convening has featured a number of resources that already are in the works to be able to activate changes in our community. But the question is, so what? How are you going to use this information in order to make those changes in your organizations or in your community? And if you've heard something today that caused an aha, that caused a moment of reflection, then how can you connect with our presenters in ways that help to build out their solutions that ultimately will help our organization? The work is too big. The task is too big for just one organization to try to go it alone. That is the power of us coming together. So please do not leave this convening or any of the previous convenings not knowing what your perhaps role or purpose is in helping create solutions and extend these organizations' capabilities to do even more, because ultimately that is what this is all about. So if there are no other questions, comments, or concerns, again, thank you all for your time here. You are walking away with information from Ryan, and I will make sure that everyone's contact information who presented today will be in our follow-up email. But as you are looking at in your particular cities and counties, addressing challenges in a comprehensive way to move economic development forward through entrepreneurship, Lawrence is really trying to do this all the way in creating a capital campaign to address funding for these issues. Vincent is working through the Capital Access Center to make sure that good vetted deals are going to financial institutions. That should not be a worry anymore. That resource is there. Donetta helping to solve the challenge of the benefit of having a place-based resource in Kansas City, Kansas, and how they did it. I encourage each of you all to be motivated, inspired, and to continue your good work. We're now officially adjourned. Thank you.